What is going on, Fightful Faithful? Welcome back here to another interview by myself, Brennan. Today we are here with another OTT talent ahead of ScrapperMania. We're here with Jay himself. How are you doing today, Jay?
Doing good, Corey. Delighted to finally look forward to getting back in the ring. It's been a long 3 months.
I can imagine that. And the injury that you did suffer was a torn muscle in your arm. Do you want to run through just the process of suffering the injury, finding out what the injury was, and finding out that you'd be missing some time?
Yeah. So it happened back in, I can't even remember the month, but it was OTT, the show before Spankdown. It was me and Sammy Dean, the main event. The whole day is a bit blurry. It was like I did a 450, knees up, and my arm was straightened out to protect myself from the bump. And something happened. I still don't know what, but my arm bent completely backwards. So I broke 2 bones in my arm, laminar fracture, and then my UCL is ruptured as well, which is the ligament that helps your arm bend and helps you lift things. So that was rough. I was seen on the day by a medic. OTT, thank God, has medics. They told me not to think too much about it. They said it's probably just shock, and it was a bit of shock. But then I went to the doctor the day after and found out I was completely ruptured off the bone. So it's been a long physio process, just very slow, very doing things day by day. But everyone has to do it, and I wouldn't be able to do some of the mental stuff if I wasn't doing some of the smaller stuff. So it was hard. Currently, there's no plan in place for me to fix the UCL. It's still ruptured. I have a consultation with a surgeon just after ScrapperMania, but it's kind of touch and go from there. So we'll hope for good news.
And has it really impacted your training ahead of Scrapper, or how long did you kind of miss training as well? Like, was there a time period where you were told to take a time off out of the ring completely? Because we saw, obviously, over the last few months, you got pulled from an appearance or two. You had to kind of explain to people and just kind of say, look, I'm injured, I'm sorry. Was that kind of something that you were trying to keep under wraps as well, that you were hurt?
Yeah, definitely. I kept it private, kind of only talking to promoters and stuff. I am the FWF heavyweight champion in Belgium, and they've been so accommodating. Like, I've been doing promos, there's plans for me to go back and all this great stuff. And the same with the promos around Ireland. They've all been reaching out, and everyone's, my phone's just been hopping, and it's to my detriment at points, But yeah, I was trying to keep it close to the chest because I wasn't sure when I was going to return. Then eventually, I think 2 months into my physio, they told me I got a date, and it was August 9th. That was my clear date. So I was out of ring completely. I was kind of going down, just helping out with training and stuff. But yeah, since then, I haven't been in the ring. I still haven't been in the ring. I won't be in the ring until ScrapperMania. So my first stepping back into a ring is going to be an OTT live show. So I wouldn't have it any other way.
And before we get into the meat of that ScrapperMania match, I do want to ask, just keep talking about the injury a little. Is there any kind of nerves about that, kind of stepping straight into the ring? And the first match that you're coming back to is pretty much the biggest match in Irish wrestling, at least for this year anyway. Is there any concern, because even when I was talking to Sammy, he said, look, no one would be in this match unless they were confident that they could go from bell to bell at their best. Like, I asked him about Charlie as well, because Charlie obviously suffered that knee injury as well. And he said, the pair is, yes, neither of you would be in this match if you didn't think you could give 100%.
Yeah, 100%. And Sammy's dead right. Like, if there was any, doubt in my mind that I wouldn't be able to perform at least to the same ability that I was before the injury, then I wouldn't be stepping into the ring. I don't. We're brought up with this mentality of you never make laminal moves. You never move across. You only move up. So if I wasn't confident that I was going to be better in the ring, I wouldn't be in the ring. And that's kind of the long and short of it. I know there's nothing I'm going to take out of the moves that I do. There's nothing that's going to slow me down. Like, right now, my arm doesn't completely straighten out, but I'm going to still keep pushing. And I took a lot of inspiration from Ric Flair when he had his plane injury. He has completely changed the way he was wrestling. And I think that's kind of what's up to me now. So I'm going to start looking at kind of incorporating a few different things, maybe move away from stuff that would rely on my UCL, which is my dominant arm. So it's hard, but I'm just excited. I'm excited to get back in. I'm excited to feel the crowd, and then the entrance for me is going to be way more important than the match, because it's the first time you step back into that arena and you feel the atmosphere, and there's nothing like a packed out stadium. Like I started wrestling after going to a packed out stadium, so hopefully that'll be, you know, the next step. Someone will see me in there and they'll say, oh, you know what, I'm going to try out the wrestling, and then it's, you know, moves in circles, and I'd be so happy with that. So if I wasn't 100% confident, I wouldn't be stepping in the ring, as Sammy was saying.
And we'll move on to the match now. And ScrapperMania this year is just a stacked card. And like I said, this is one of the biggest, most important matches in Irish wrestling. And the thing is, you've been kind of, as someone who in recent times has been, let's say, the least patient member of the draw with Be Cool, even since Be Cool was terminated, you've shown a small bit of hesitation, which surprised me. You don't seem to be 100% on board with how Sammy and the rest of the draw have been treating Barry, despite that tension. Do you have any additional comments on that part of this? What's going on?
Yeah, I do. You know, nobody ever asks me this. Nobody ever asks me about how I feel towards Barry. Barry's been a prick to me for 8 or 9 years. However long I've been wrestling, Be Cool's just been throwing his coat over me until I decided to be useful for him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like, the reason why I joined the draw is because it was the next step. You know what I mean? It was the next. These are some people that I can align with, and their goals really fit with mine. But we're all trying to raise the promotion up. We're all trying to put OTT in a map. And I just think this Be Cool stuff is really, really beneath us. I don't think I'd be remiss to say that. Why is Be Cool even around the title picture? Why is that being allowed to happen? And to me, it's Sammy. Sammy is letting everything get out of control. Sammy is letting his kind of soft side. You know, when I was brought up by some of these older lads, the vibe was, you look after yourself and you look after people who are going to help you get to where you're going. Mm-hmm. Be Cool is driving a car to nowhere. Nobody's in the back seat and he hasn't got a seatbelt on. Why would I step into that car? So why are we anywhere near Be Cool? That's where I'm at. I'm above and beyond it now, and I'm ready to get onto the real issues in OTT, and they are numerous, but it all starts with getting Be Cool out of the title picture.
And you mentioned it there about like Sammy and that. And when I was talking to Sammy, I asked him, like, you two obviously over the last 6 months really have had a good bit of tension. Like, there's been a lot of bashness between you. Obviously, the Triple Shout World title match at Gaff Party, where you decided, you know what, screw it, 450 through a table on the outside, got to take the risk. But in the end, Sammy would blame you after and would go mental at you. But he said that all that stuff has kind of been mended. Do you agree with that? Do you feel the same way as Sammy in that regard?
To me, it was never a personal issue. Yeah. I've always been, from day one, I've said, I'm going to do whatever it takes in whatever match, and I'm going to try and make this show must see. And that's what I did in that main event. What am I going to do? Am I going to jump onto Trent 7, or am I going to write my name in lights and do another 450 through a table out onto the concrete? There's a liter of my blood on the ground in Wolverhampton. And when they look at that, they say, oh shit, OTT's in town. Let's go back. That's always been my philosophy. Let's put on the best show we can for the best fans, because that's the draw. That's the real draw. Nobody's coming away from an OTT show going, oh my God, Be Cool was class. Oh my God, did you see the Social Elite? I love their shoes. No, it's all about the Irish wrestling fans. It's about making them go ballistic. And that's all I do. And Sammy didn't realize that in the moment because he was selfish. And that's, hopefully he's a bit less selfish, because now he's thrown his own toys out of pram, and Trent 7 has it in his pram now.
And before we move back to Scrapper, I have to ask you about because I was at Gaff Party, and let's just say your mom was in the crowd, and I was close to your mom and all that. She was getting it from Trent. She was getting a bit of it from Sammy as well during the match. But how did she react after she saw that 450? I have to ask, because when I saw her reaction, it was a lot of, this little bastard's after scaring the shit out of me. That was the look on her face. So I have to ask about that.
Yeah, that's a phenomenon. My mom was never into wrestling. Was kind of like whenever I'd watch wrestling, she'd walk out of the room. Ever since I started wrestling, she's been the biggest fan. She buys every bit of merch, and she'd be taking the pictures with Trent Seven when he's not being an arsehole. But she was really concerned that I like to clue her in to when I'm doing some mental stuff. I'll give her a text. I never let her know that I was going to do something mental in Wolverhampton because I didn't really know in the moment either. You know what I mean? And my phone blew up, so I had to let her know what was happening. And then usually when you see someone who's just on a 450 through a table, creamed my jaw off the floor. By the way, it was on the other side of my face getting up.
Yeah.
And then she hits me a clatter across the face. I said, "Well
Typical Irish family.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I had to ask about that.
Yes.
Even like just even being there and watching it happen and just having a side like watching you climb up. And I think everyone in her section has kind of had side eye and like, oh geez, she's gonna kill him.
Well, she did. She got a good hit in though.
And before we do, I get to supremacy or not supremacy to ScrapperMania and more in depth. That I do want to just one more time about Sammy. You two did end up wrestling at, I believe it was Supremacy. You two did have that one-on-one match. You did manage to escape with the win, even with the injury that you suffered at the event. What did that mean to you to get that one-on-one victory over Sammy, who was someone who you respect so much, the leader of the draw, someone who you have had bumped heads with? How much did it mean to get that win? And do you still feel that kind of momentum in OTT coming off that win?
Do I feel the momentum? No, but that's a sign of the injury. You know what I mean? I've been out for so long, and I've been trying to kind of keep relevant, but it's so hard, especially when everyone's wrestling every week. But for me, that match with Sammy, it was one of my favorites. I had wrestled Sammy before at it was I'm Gonna Fight Mall in the complex. That was the GN and NLW joining the belts.
Yeah.
Came up short there. It was one of my best matches, and I loved being in the ring with Sammy. There's just something about it's that Rock and Hogan moment of I'm in with a star, so let's make a match out of this, For me, the momentum for myself is always there because regardless, broken arm, 3 months off, it doesn't change the fact that I'm the guy who beat Sammy D with one fucking arm. And that's all I care about. I beat Sammy D with one arm, and I was a bad arm as well.
That fair as hell. But now switching back to Scrapper, it like I said, it's such a big match. You're coming off an injury, but there's a very big stipulation in play, not just for victory for the draw, but for losing for the draw. If the draw should lose, they will be forced to disband. What are your thoughts on that stipulation? And is there any concern of if you lose, do you feel like it's time for you to kind of, that's it, time to shoot off on your own? Or are you going to try and maybe stick around in the tag team division?
Well, for me, I've kind of done the tag thing.
Yeah.
2-time OTT tag champion, the only man to hold 2 belts at the one time. I love what the tag division is doing now. The freshness and Social Elite, I think, are really lighting it up. BDE as well, I think, are insanely good. But I think, the reason that everyone's on the same page here, it's like me, Charlie, Sam, Flex, is because there's such a more important problem that the OTT champion right now is someone who whores himself out to whoever will sign his name to a contract. Mm-hmm. Why should our champion be showing up with our belt on some other show for his own personal benefit? I'm an OTT day one lifer. Like, I will never, ever leave that promotion. And to see someone with the belt that Walter, Jordan Devlin, all these greats that are really hitting their peak right now, and then Trent Seven, it doesn't even show up for half the shows. So I'm willing to shake hands with everybody in that match and say, as long as Comedy Match Barry doesn't get into the main event and we take that belt off that silver prick, I'll be happy.
And say there is a situation where the draw does lose that match, would there be any mixed feelings with Barry challenging for the title, or would there be some support given Trent's obvious status and Barry being, despite your like issues with Barry, I think you'd be happy to even admit like he has been just a long time member of the Irish wrestling scene. Fans love him and so on. Would you be supporting him if the draw were to lose?
I think my pride would be hurt immensely getting beat by Be Cool and three lads who I haven't seen. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the draw disbanding, it hasn't entered my mind really. What's been happening more in my mind is like, okay, if Sammy gets the pin, is Sammy going on? Or if someone else gets the pin, is someone else going on? That's my feeling. It's written in stone now that Team Sammy wins, Sammy goes. But I mean, the only thing worse than having an absentee champion is having a champion that nobody wants to wrestle. So if Be Cool does become the OTT champion, it probably does worse for OTT than having no champion. So I don't know if I could stand up and say, okay, let's go Barry at the end. I'd rather a vacated. I'd rather a rumble on the night. I would rather a parking lot brawl, something. But it won't happen. It won't happen. I put my other arm on that
one. That's fair. But I have to ask, you said you're going to change the way you wrestle a little now. You're coming off the injury. Does that mean we're not going to see a patented Jay deciding to scare the shite out of everyone in the National Stadium spot at the show?
There will definitely be them spots. It was as soon as I hit the 450 and broke my arm, I was like, there's one thing that I have to hit this again. I have to, just to prove to myself like that I can do it. It's my finish. I've done this move a million times. The first time I did it was on Kyle Fletcher in ScrapperMania in the National Stadium, and I'd never practiced it before. I had just said to Barry, I'm like, I'm going to hit 450 today. So that's just what I do. The way I describe it. And if there's any young wrestlers, don't kill yourselves, but there's a point where you're up there and you feel it in your chest. It's like a quick time event in a video game. You've pressed X at the right time. You hear that ping, just do it. You'll be safe.
Absolutely, lot of wrestlers today. Probably, I'd love to hear like every high flyer. I'd love to explain that concept to high flyer and see what like every high flyer in wrestling, just see how they react. Because I feel like that's a very good like representation of doing the move. And just you mentioned it there as well that there's you don't know who Barry's teammates are going to be. As someone who teamed with Barry for a while, is there anyone that you can think of that he might call on? Sammy seems to think that no one's going to show up for Barry. Barry's going to have to bring his ma and his family into the ring with him. So I'm curious, do you think the same, or is there anyone in your mind that you could see being on Be Cool's team?
Barry's had a few tag partners. Sadly for him, a lot of them have kind of hung up their boots. I think there's going to be I've seen a few predictions on social media. I think there's going to be a lot of disappointed faces. No, sorry, Cody Rhodes is not going to show up to be on Team B. I honestly, I can think of a few lads who kind of never made it to OTT. I can think of lads who kind of are banging in and around, like anybody from Barry's past, anybody who he's kind of nodded to at the shops, anybody who's a friend of his ma, something like that. Exactly like Sammy said, he'd have to bring his ma into the ring. But I don't see anybody who's, actively wrestling still around that Barry has any connections to that would come back. So, I think it might be a 4-on-1. I think it might be a kick the puppy to death moment.
Jesus. And you mentioned it there a little bit ago about the National Stadium and wrestling, and you've wrestled in it five-ish times, I believe, 5-6 times now. Is that something that like can you put like as an Irish wrestling fan myself, like you have to say like that is the Irish wrestling venue. That's for like that's the biggest venue that we usually have at that. Like obviously. We'd love to see you lads run the Tree Arena, but that doesn't seem to be a possibility anytime soon. So National Stadium is where it's at. It's a great atmosphere, and as a fan, and you mentioned there, it was such a great atmosphere. It made you want to be a wrestler. But then on the flip side, I do want to ask: you've wrestled there, as I said, 5-6 times at this point. What's that? The difference for you between like being there as a fan, being there as a wrestler? What's that energy this place almost feel like?
You can't really put it into words almost, like it's when you're a fan, you feel the amount of people around you, and you're kind of in the crowd. And it's very similar to, I used to do security at concerts, and it was the same. It was everybody in there would see the stage, and when all I saw was people. So it's unbelievable stepping out of the curtain. I've done it once before when I wasn't wrestling. I was Be Cool's cameraman. And I walked out. It was the first time I walked out into the National Stadium, and just the lights, the people, just it as far as you can see back. Like, it's 2,000 people. It's not, WrestleMania crowds, but my God, the noise, the atmosphere. You walk out of the curtain and the air is sucked out of you. You just cannot believe that this is happening. And it's been every single time I've walked out of the stadium. Like, every time I've thought I had it, it's like, nah, just another day at work. This is just another Saturday. You walk out and it's, oh my God, I'm in the National Stadium for OTT. It's surreal, absolutely surreal. And if you were on WrestleMania could you know what it was like. That's what I'd say.
And when I last talked to you, we talked a little about like what 2024 was going to be like for you, and being one of the younger stars of the Irish scene and kind of pushing your way through. But this year, you've actually wrestled a couple of the younger lads, even younger lads. You wrestled Boots Murphy, you wrestled Keane Noonan. What were those matches like this year? Because Keane especially, well, I don't want to say Keane especially, because Boots is another talent who is just incredible, but they're kind of the next kind of wave of OTT stars, and you've said yourself you're an OTT lifer. So what is it like seeing these young lads coming through, wrestling them, and like, was there kind of a moment where you were like, Jesus, these lads can go?
You have that moment when someone walks into a wrestling school. Like, walking into the school is the hardest thing you can do. You're walking into a whole bunch of new faces, like your first day of school again, and you can tell just from your first rolls and first bumps, like, who's really going to make it. And Keane stood out, Boots stood out. A lot of other guys coming. Luke Frehel really stood out in his first day. I'm so happy to see him get a chance against Scotty Davis on Aftermath. But I hate using this word. I hate to be proud of other trainees, because at the end of the day, I've done nothing for their career, and I don't have the right to take pride in that. But it just makes me so happy to see that their work is paying off. I love to step into the ring with Keane. I love to step into the ring with Boots, and it's just natural. I feel like I'm in there with a vet. I feel like I'm in there with someone who I've been wrestling, 30 years. And it's really, really, really good to see the lads getting the support they need, the support that they deserve, and especially the opportunities. Keane Noonan and LJ Cleary is going to be an unbelievable match. That was when I credit my career as really taken off. When I looked myself in the mirror and said, you know what, you can have a match with LJ Cleary. That's when I became a wrestler. I was like, okay, I can do this now. This is my job. Keane Noonan's going to have that moment. He's going to look at himself in the mirror and say, I'm going to have a match with LJ Cleary, and I'm going to smash it out of the park. So I'll be front row for that. Absolutely front row.
Don't blame me in the slightest with that match. All right. And obviously with the injury, and obviously after Scrapper, as you said, you have a consultation with a surgeon, possibly going into surgery soon after. What's been keeping you busy? Like, have you been coaching a lot? Has that been helping to keep your mind off things? Or has it kind of just been kind of a thing where you're watching people and you're like, I really want to be back in there with them?
So I haven't really been down to the school, because it's this fear of missing out. You always just want to jump into the ring. I was asked to take a few classes, and I don't really like taking classes. I much prefer to learn. I think I've still so much to learn. Lads like Paddy Morrow, Session Martina, Sean Max Guinness, Joe, they're the guys who should be teaching, you know what I mean? So I try and stay away from them as much as I can. But you just do get a fear of missing out. And it's I want to be there, but I don't want to be there. And I need to be in the gym, and I need to be on physio, and I need to be doing all this other stuff. So I get down when I can. But now that I'm looking down the barrel of getting cleared, I'm really excited about just getting back in and just rolling around and finding my happy place again, you know?
And I asked Sam about this as well. If Team the Draw does win Trent 7 main event, there's a lot of other influences on that ScrapperMania card. In TNA, Trent is aligned with Speedball Mike Bailey and with Nick Nemeth. So when I asked Sam about that, he wasn't concerned. But as someone who will be undoubtedly in Sam's corner should he win, is that something that you're thinking, right, I'm going to end up having to punch Speedball Mike Bailey in the face, or the TNA World Heavyweight Champion in the face, if they do stick their nose in the OTT World Title match?
Yeah, so I think about that a lot more than Sam, because Sam seems to forget his own recent history. Like, we are the draw, we are the kings of helping each other out in matches. I've wrestled Speedball before. I've beat Speedball. He didn't pin him, but I beat him. Trent Seven, I've wrestled Trent before, and I never got pinned. There's so many moving parts to this that if you're not looking at Speedball, you're not looking at Nick Nemeth, then you don't see how Trent Seven is getting out of this ScrapperMania with the title. You just don't. You've resigned yourself to say Trent Seven's losing. I think Trent Seven, knowing the type of person he is, knowing that he just latch himself on to whatever is going to make him relevant. Speedball Mike Bailey, super relevant. Nick Nemeth, the most relevant. Trent Seven is going to be like a pig in shit. It's going to be like a day at the races for him. He is going to be hedging every single bet he can and making every deal he can, shaking every hand and kissing every baby, trying to be main event Trent Seven. But it's not going to happen because the draw is still here. Sammy D is going to be the next world heavyweight champion. Charlie Sterling's 100% fit. He could pick Big Damo and throw him out of the ring if he wanted to. And Flex Maxted is transcending media right now. He's the star of Love Island, the star of OTT. You can't go to a show in the UK without seeing Adam Maxted. Where's Trent Seven? Every other week we might see him on Bravo there at 1 o'clock in the morning. Who gives a shit? We're the draw and we run this place.
Emphatic as always from you, Jay. Like, Jesus. Didn't expect that kind of answer, but justified as always. And look, when we did talk, I asked you a lot, like, is 2024 going to be a breakout year for you? Obviously, the injury did kind of prevent a lot of that from happening. And I do have to, and I'm going to ask you anyway, going to just carry it on over. Is 2025 going to be your big breakout year if you can stay healthy? That is. And I'm not calling you injury prone. I just want to make sure you're not injury prone, but it can happen to anyone. So.
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever broken a bone in my life. So yeah. I used to think I was invincible. I don't want to say 2025 is going to be my breakout year because that seems to be the course. But I will say 2025 is going to be the year where I look at my position, realize that I should be really, really, really fucking higher than I am, and start doing things that start progressing me up the card, because I'm not happy staying where I am. I'm not, like I said, I don't like staying in the same place. I don't like making laminal moves. I'm making moves up the card. And to me, that's the absolute apex of my career is going to be the OTT world champion. I'm going to drag OTT back to the top of independent wrestling. And I'm going to shout from the biggest mountain that we are OTT. We have the best fans in the world. We put on the best shows in the world. And if you think you're hard enough, come and have a go, because I'm the Kingslayer. And who the fuck are you? That is what 2025 is going to be. It's going to be my year where I drag Irish wrestling back to the top.
And I'm happy that you brought up Kingslayer, because one question I did want to ask you, and you've mentioned him a couple of times, is Gunther. He's someone who very, very, very well known to OTT fans, OTT talent. He was the OTT world champion. He is a king. Is that a match that in the future, somewhere down the line, that would be a dream match for you? Is that up there with like one of the top matches that you can have in pro wrestling for you?
I think so, and I think it's because of the high standard that's set in this country. I think that we, as young Irish wrestlers these days, have on a pedestal Jordan Devlin, Walter. That is the greatest match that we've put on as a country. So following Jordan Devlin's footsteps, to share the ring with Walter, and not just, Gunther, WWE World Heavyweight Champion. You're looking at Walter, the phenom in WXW, the defiant progress. This man had an iron grip on the indies, and if you don't study history, you're doomed to repeat it. So I don't see why any indie wrestler is not looking at the top guy right now and saying, oh, well, I'm never going to be in the ring with him. Then why are you wrestling? Why are you there? If you don't think that you could be the best in the world, why are you there? So I invite Gunther, Walter, come back to your old stomping grounds. Try and take that belt. There's an army of us. He tried to walk out a belt in that very match. And there was an army of Irish wrestlers and Irish wrestling fans wouldn't let him leave the building. So let him try and walk in the building this time. I'd like to see him fucking try.
And just one thing that I do want to touch on, we talked about it a little, is wrestling outside of Ireland. Obviously, you mentioned Belgium. you've wrestled in across kind of the UK at times as well, but it's still something that's kind of escaped you. But you've said, as you said multiple times, and it's something that I haven't really had someone. I've interviewed plenty of Irish talent, plenty of OTT talent, and I've not really come across someone who lives and breathes the promotion as much as you do. Every time I've talked to you, anytime I've seen a Twitter post from you, you can tell like you are the heart and soul of OTT, in my opinion, anyway, and a lot of fans' opinion. But is something you've said that you never want to leave, you never want to kind of like go away, but there is the option. Like we've seen a couple of Irish wrestlers, in particular, Session Martina. OTT is her home. She's made it very clear OTT is her home. She's the OTT Women's World Champion. She's constantly been around. But we've also seen her kind of take over almost in the UK as well with Riot, with Progress. She's going to be challenged for the Progress Women's World title later this month as well. Is that kind of the kind of like run you'd like to have, like where you're not leaving OTT, you're still going to be on every show, but you want to also expand? Is that something that's kind of is Session Mott's kind of playbook, kind of the way you want to go with?
That's it's kind of the blueprint for the Irish wrestler, the way Session Mott was able to market herself and just be one of the best wrestlers outright, the complete total package around Europe for years. And I totally respect it. For me, it's just there's no prize in the UK for me. There's no like, okay, the Rev Pro Championship, I could leave that to Mike Loco and Rev Pro, you know what I mean? Progress, that's all right. You know, who are Progress anymore? You know what I mean? So to me, OTT is the best. It's the only place I want to be. The way I see it is I want to be a conqueror. I don't want to be a journeyman. I want to raise the World Heavyweight Championship in my home. And then if someone else wants to see me with my World Championship, they can bring me in. But until that happens, I'm not flying myself over to the UK. I'm not going to beg for people to book me. If you want to book me, my DMs are open. I have a fee and I live in Dublin, so you have to sort that out. But other than that, I'm not worried. I'm in the best place in Europe for wrestling, and no one's going to take that away from us anytime soon.
And before I do let you go, I just have one final question to ask. Just want to get some final thoughts on ScrapperMania, not just your match, but kind of the card as a whole. Obviously, it's an absolutely stacked card. One of the criticisms that's been levied at the card is the lack of women's match on the card. Obviously, a lot of people are concerned about that, but we know that the Irish wrestling scene, unfortunately, there isn't as many women's Irish wrestlers as there would be, say, in the UK and so on and so forth. But just general thoughts on the card itself and how you're feeling going into it.
Yeah, like you said, I would be absolutely torn asunder, and rightly so, if I didn't mention that. You know, there's no women's title match, which to me it's a staple of OTT. I think OTT is kind of like the old TNA in that respect. You know, we didn't have divas, we had knockouts, we had wrestlers. You know what I mean? So, but I have 100% faith that Session Martina will show up, and the pop will be amazing, and the party will be unreal. Matches that I'm looking out for is Nick Nemeth and LJ Cleary. Me and LJ go back a long time. It's my first wrestling class, and I'm so happy to see him get this opportunity. In my view, LJ Cleary is the best main event wrestler on the planet right now. There's nobody who knows his way around the main event more than LJ Cleary, and that's because he is the show. You have LJ Cleary, you have your main event. So definitely going to be watching that, especially with someone like tried and true as Nick Nemeth and such a huge name. Like you see LJ and Matt Cardona a few years ago, insanity. So I'm really looking forward to that. BDE, as I said, really, really good team. Really excited to see them. Lads from the Flats, that was, I think I said to you last time, Corey, I've got into wrestling over a Lads from the Flats match.
Yeah,
I'll be watching 100%. There's a multi-man that I really want to see Santos do something incredible in.
Yes, sir.
But one thing about that multi-man is the GN, my old belt, with Ilya Zarkov. I think Ilya Zarkov is, like you said, one of those crop that's just came in. The first time he was in the ring, I was like, wow, this lad's a killer, an absolute killer. So I can't wait to see him and Santos like a truck and a comet colliding. It's going to be unreal. Yeah, I know I'm missing a few matches, but it's an absolutely stacked card. The money match. How could I forget Speedball Mike Bailey, one of the most exciting wrestlers in the world right now, and man like the Reese, one of the what's the word? He just has that something. He's incredible.
Swagger about him, charisma, just his entrance, man.
It's that to have the confidence to your own entrance. My God, that man is a revelation. And then finally, my old belts again, the tag team championships. Saw some really, really, really cool videos about this, and I believe there's a boy band going into it, which is pretty
I've
sick.
seen it. Yeah.
So if I'd love to see the Social Elite get beat by anybody, it's the Fresh Naz. So
Yeah.
I'll be firmly in the Fresh Naz corner. And then, of course, the main event. Who's it going to be? Nobody knows. Show up on the
day. And guys, if you are new to the Irish wrestling scene, to OTT as a whole, go and follow Jay. As I've said, I said it before at that first, I'll say it again. He is easily one of the top talents breaking through in Europe. He's going to be massive. He's going to be the OTT world champion one day. I'm very confident in that fact. He's going to be involved, guys, in something that I've described as one of the most biggest matches in Irish wrestling history. I think Jay would agree with that. He has agreed with that. 8-man tag team match. The draw will face off with Be Cool and 3 partners of his choosing. The winning team, either Be Cool or Sammy D, will go on to the main event to face Trace 7 for the OTT World Championship. If you do guys do want to follow Jay, you can follow him at J__OTT. I'm actually gonna say it for you this time, because last time you had to fucking remember it and Google it. So I've had that ready this time.
Somebody already had _OTT.
Never know at this point. One day maybe you can buy it out, buy the username out, and you'll be grand. But yeah, guys, make sure to check out ScrapperMania on. There's 3 events this weekend. First, you've got the Wolverhampton event on Friday. You've got the Dublin event on Saturday, where Jay will be competing, and then on Sunday you will have the Belfast event and aftermath. All 3 cards are very stacked out, guys. Make sure to go check them out if you live near any of them. And is there any final things you want to plug before I let you go, Jay?
Not really. We also have a comedy show on Thursday in Lost Lane featuring Dolph Ziggler, Nick Nemeth, and also Dan Barry, who's going to be on the card on Saturday. So yeah, get down there. Nobody wear Be Cool t-shirts. I will be going around the crowd ripping them off people. So
just gonna have to buy one myself, just see if you're actually a man of your word there now.
That's it. You just gotta get out of summer body, Corey.
But yeah, guys, like I said, follow Jay. Make sure to tune in. You can check out OTT ScrapperMania. I imagine it'll be up a few days on OTT on demand after it is live. Make sure to check it out, guys. If you are new to Fightful, guys, if you're new to Fightful Scraps, Fightful Overbooked, Fightful Main Channel, Fightful Select, wherever this is going up, make sure to subscribe, check back for more. And yeah, guys, as I mentioned a couple of times, interviewed Sammy D a couple of days ago. That should be out at the time of this release. You can check that out ahead of and an interview with the Social Elite ahead of ScrapperMania, so you can check those out as well. And yeah, guys, see you all in the next one.